Here's how nursing students and pre-nursing students should study anatomy and physiology. First off, you do have to recognize that there is a ton of memorization you have to do with anatomy and physiology, and there's no getting around that part. But there are ways you can make it easier, have it make more sense to your brain, and most importantly, make sure it sticks so that you retain it long term. You don't just brain dump after the test, because you will need this information later on in nursing school. It's literally the foundation of everything else you will learn later on in nursing school. So here's my tips for making the memorization easier. First, you need to do it in layers. If you're starting with the skeletal system, don't just try to memorize every single bone in the body. Divide and conquer. So break up the body into things that make sense to your brain. So like the skull first. Memorize all the major bones in the skull. You can use repetition. You can use like a diagram that you write over and over again. Doesn't really matter. Flashcards are fine for this, as long as you know the location of the bones as well as the name. Then move on to another area, like the vertebrae or the arms. The arms are nice because it's kind of like a 2-for-1 special. If you know the right arm, you know all the bones of the left arm. And so on until you know all the major bones of the body. Then return to the skull, review, make sure you still remember it, then do a second pass of memorization on the specific landmarks. You know, the fossa, the condyles, all those things like that. Those should be a little bit easier to memorize now because you have a memory hook. You already know the bones, you just have to kind of get some detail about those bones. And then again, you go to the different parts of the body, the vertebrae, the thoracic region, the arms. Still a 2-for-1 special until you know all of the landmarks on all of the bones. Then you go back for a third pass. On your third pass, you review what is the job of these, in this case, bones. For a lot of this case, it's going to be like protection of the body and the internal organs. And of course, we're also getting into blood cell creation and just understanding how bone is created and grown, how it helps regulate electrolytes even. And again, it's a little bit easier now because you have a foundation, you have memory hooks from your previously studied stuff. Now, when you get to your next unit, which is usually muscles, it's going to be even easier now, and I'll tell you why. Number one, you're not going to brain dump the bones because the way you just memorized it was a repeated, consistent memorization technique that helps with retention. You reviewed things multiple times over time. That tells your brain it's important instead of just cramming and brain dumping. Second, guess where muscles attach to? They layer on top of the bones. And remember all those bone landmarks you took the time to memorize? A lot of them are landmarks because they are connecting points for the muscles. So instead of starting from scratch with the muscle unit and being like, there's all these squishy things and it's hard to kind of visualize where they connect and how they all go on the body, now you have memory hooks of the bones to be like, oh, this muscle is connected to this bone at this landmark. Like I said, even with this method, there's no getting around the fact that you do have to put the time and effort in to do the memory work. But it's the most strategic way of memorizing anatomy and physiology that I have found, which means that you are being the most efficient with your study time. And that's going to pay off huge dividends when you get to nursing school. Make sure you follow for more nursing school and pre-nursing school tips. If you're still pre-nursing, I also have a pre-nursing boot camp that's coming up that I would love for you to attend, and you get info about that in my bio link.